What's going on, Safehouse family?
What's going on? Welcome back.
Welcome back. We are back again with another episode.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, we're now into a 7th episode.
Wow.
Right? 7th.
Yeah, like this pace is. We on pace, sir.
We're on pace.
Yes,
we're trying to do it, right?
Come on, Jesus.
We're trying to be persistent at being consistent.
Yes. That's a whole word right there.
It's a whole word right there. That'll preach a sermon. So just remember, everybody, if you haven't had a chance to check out our previous videos, make sure you go back and check out our previous videos. One of our most popular videos is the one about until you get punched in the mouth, right?
Yep, everything is good until you get punched
Everyone
in the
has
mouth.
a plan until, right? Very popular episode. We believe you'll be blessed by it. Go back and check that out. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you comment, hit that little bell so you'll be notified when we publish new content. And then just make sure you continue to share comments with us because that's how we improve this little channel here called Safehouse.
Absolutely. So we're going to continue our conversation today about pace. And basically pace is how are we moving in transition? Are we together? Are we, is somebody lagging behind? What types of tools do we use to kind of make sure we're both on the same page about it? So we kind of talked about that in the last episode. And I know you guys are used to just having us, be transparent about our own lives, but we thought it would be a good idea to kind of invite another couple to come on and talk about their experience.
Yeah, it's going to get a chance to hear about pacing from a different perspective.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So we'd like to introduce to you a couple that we believe are not only just continuous models of what it looks like to understand pacing and continue to improve in pacing, but their testimony of how to come through it in challenge. And so very, very marvelous couple, great friends, great colleagues, great preachers in their own right. We'd like to introduce to you Reverend Joseph and Adrian Murphy.
Whoop, whoop,
all right.
I was trying to figure out who you talking about, who you about to bring on. I thought you had invited us.
Our friends, yay.
All right. In Memphis, Tennessee, Maine, they down.
Memphis in the house, in the safe house it is.
Yes. We love it.
Yeah. Well, cool. What's up, yeah. So, how are you all doing down there? How's life? How's ministry? How are things?
Things are going pretty good. We're enjoying our fellowship that we have with Dwelling Place International Church, Apostle Ken Tony, and so that's a blessing, and we're just glad to be in fellowship with the great Allens and Safehouse.
Too kind.
Those preachers in their own right, yeah.
Both, let's let the record reflect accurately. Great preachers.
Well, thank you.
Anointed, yep.
So let's get into this.
Yeah.
So, not only are you a advocate, you're also a client. So you've been participating in the Safe House lessons and watching the videos. So if we'd like to dig in with you by asking you a few questions, if you don't mind. And so I'm going to let my bride kick it off with some questions and perspectives about pace.
Oh, wow.
Amen.
It's so funny. This is actually, this is like a question that really wasn't even on there, but you kind of brought it up when you said that you guys are, in fellowship with a different church, DPIC. And so I know you have your own church, the Caring Church. So there's just been so many different transitions that you guys have made, because that isn't the first church that you guys have pastored. So as a pastor and a first lady, how easy or how difficult has it been for you guys and in your marriage to make those different transitions from pastoring different people, and then at sometimes just being pastored yourselves?
Amen. It's a good question.
That's an excellent question, and I know he's going to answer it. But what was the question?
It was an excellent question. You don't remember?
Right. Go ahead and answer, and then I'll remember where I was going with this.
So I think that for me, it was a matter of just being prayerful and seeking God, and kind of, periodically. You talk about pace. To me, part of pacing has to include periodic checks. Kind of, you guys used last week, because I always listen to you guys, but last week you used the analogy of the race car and race car driving. And occasionally, that the car that's racing has to stop, make a pit stop. And when it's making that pit stop, it is getting some things checked out.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, having to periodically check what God is saying in the moment concerning ministry really brought me to a place of fellowship with Dwelling Place International and Apostle Ken Tony. And just being, in prayer and taking that introspective look, brought me to the conclusion for me to still do some things concerning Caring Church Ministries, which is the church that we pastor, kind of, from a perspective of the internet and social media, but to commit to development for me and my wife through being discipled by Apostle Ken Tony. And so for me, that's kind of how that transition came about. I had to, really get before God and say, okay, God, I feel like you're wanting us to shift what we're doing with Caring Church, but also there's some development that me and my wife need that we're not going to be able to get while we're trying to pastor on Sundays in a building. And so that's how it happened for me.
Well, that's very humble, right? That's a humble move, right? Because a lot of times we get into places and we know what we're appointed to do, but still, using time to submit yourself while you're still developing. That's a place of humility and something to be admired, something a lot of us can take a lesson from. So,
are you going to share?
No. Because for the most part, I agree. The whole pacing thing, you have to know where you are, what I'm saying? You have to know what you need. And so when you realize what you need, it's easy to just, step down, sit back and just take a look. Okay, this is what I need for development. If I want to go further in our ministry, then we need to be poured into, and we have to step back and, get what we need in order to feed the people what they need.
So did you find that that both of you were on the same page at the same time about that? Because once again, like I said, you guys have been married just as long as we have. We're coming up on 30. And so you guys have been married, just like I said, just as long as we have. And so even doing ministry just that long. And so, like I said, I'd have to imagine that, like you said, it's like, okay, it's kind of like Abraham and Sarah. It's like, okay, one day we're here and then the next day we're someplace else. And it's not always that easy to jump, to make those transitions as spouses, to be like, okay, man, we just got here. Now what are we doing? So I was just curious to see, like, like I said, understanding, that's the spiritual answer of, we're going to be on board with what God is doing. But what is that really like in marriage? How have you guys made that transition in marriage to say, okay, like you said, who comes to who and says, hey, this is what God is saying, and now we're both on board with it? Or has there been this lag of, okay, I got to try to pull the other person along, because that's going to be natural anyway. I'm just curious, like, what that looks like for you guys. I know what it looks like for us. I'm curious what that looks like for you guys.
Okay, so what it looks like for us, he'll come with the transition move. And so then it's up to me to start, like, biting my tongue, gritting my teeth, because it's like there like, naturally there have been times where I fought against the transition. One, because I didn't understand it. sometimes for selfish reasons, just being transparent, maybe not even believing in the move, you know what I'm saying? So because there was this uncertainty, I'll use that word, uncertainty, it causes the pace to, like, for me, it caused me to back up, to slow down, where he's trying to forge forward, not that I'm not forging forward, but I'm not moving either. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So just taking literally baby steps, because it's like, here it is, we're about to move into something different again, and that has been my mindset again. It takes a minute for me to get on board. I'm the type, I need details, and granted, God is not going to always give us details, but in the natural, I need details. How is this going to look? What are we going to do? Some things I need to know. It's probably a control issue, not that I'm trying to be in control, but I just need a few more details before I move. And if I'm not clear on it, I'll actually slow my pace down. I'll eventually get on board, but I will lag behind. He'll try to, not push in the negative piece, but he'll maintain, stay on task. This is what we have to do. This is where we need to be. Yeah, I'll get there. You keep moving. I'm coming. So
that's real talk.
Yeah, I think part of what helps that is, we have to know each other's calling, right? Like, we have to know the gifting and the anointing that we're both, where we at, and I'm sure we're going to probably overuse this word, but we have to know each other's pace, right? And so when you get out of emotion and get into the spirit realm, you can know each other's pace. Now watch this. Even though I said that, we still do have to take in considerations the emotional aspect, especially when, and I can't speak for anybody else, but especially when you've been the type of individual I've been, who has made several moves, and a lot of those moves weren't necessarily communicated very well with my wife. And so sometimes, you got to just, again, take ownership of how your toy got broke. You can't just you can't just be mad that your toy's broke and be like, I wish it was fixed. No, did you help break your toy? And the reason that that's important is because not knowing why the toy is broke slows down the pace even more.
Yeah.
And so once you determine, like, hey, I have been a notorious non-communicator, that hinders pace. And so I think for this last situation, well, I don't think I know for this last situation, to stop having service at our own place and just do it on social media and then go over and help out the Tonys. Number one, I know it was God, because it didn't just entail improving me. It entailed improving us. It entailed us both being poured into and discipled, and really God up giving us an opportunity to be stronger so we can go back out and be better when we go back out, right? And so there was definitely more communication on this, because that's the other thing that helped. It was like, okay, God, hey, this is what God is saying. This is what the apostle has said to us. This is what he wants us to do. This is what, we're thinking about doing. What do you think about that? And so, and so I feel like everything my wife said was definitely accurate. And like I said, I take personal responsibility for, some of the ways that I've made her, gun shy and, however, it really is an opportunity for both of us to get in God's face and to hear from God, because I definitely believe he's called us to ministry together. And so, God's not going to necessarily tell me one thing all the time. Sometimes he's going to tell me stuff, but there's going to be times he's going to share it with both of us. And so we both know. So.
Yeah. And I can honestly say with this last, the Tony transition,
Tony transition. All right. It's the Tony.
It's the Tony
It's the
Tony
Tony
trans-
transition. I like
I
it.
was on board with this one because, like different things come about, there's always some hesitancy for me, some procrastination, which I have to, that spirit is gone. But this particular thing, I was on board from the jump with this one. Even like when there was a transition within the transition, I just felt like this is the right thing to do, so. So I think my pace with this one was like, we was right there neck and neck.
Amen. So it sounds like, one, we just love hearing the accountability, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is taking ownership for their portion, right? I like what you mentioned. It's like, how did my toy get broke, right? And it just sounds like, which is very, very healthy. I know what hand I played in creating the environment that we exist in. And I take ownership of my component to make sure we emerge from this environment or we grow from this environment. So in that vein, are there any other tools that you all use as you're going along, or even as you go now? Are there tools that you have to say, okay, don't want to revisit that behavior anymore. Let's do this to sort of prevent us from going to a negative place. Are there any tools you've developed?
I'm using this tool called listening. And it's like working, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know it really worked like this. If you listen, you can get an understanding. And so I'm using that one a little bit more. I've been known, I don't know where it came from, but sometimes I'll do stuff and I ain't heard nothing, you know what I'm saying? But now I'm actually listening to get an understanding, to get clarity. And then once I've heard and understood, then I act or react.
That's good.
Reverend?
Yeah, I try to
listen, but no, I'm just joking.
Nobody trying to hear that mess. No, I try to keep in mind what I've prayed and sought God for, right? And I think sometimes when we seek God for particular things and God started moving, sometimes we don't remember what we sought him for. And so we don't even recognize him moving and confirming what he has already spoke to us. And so for me, I think I've done more, as my wife said, listening, but also trying to remember what God called us to. And so even in the Tony transition, I had listened. There's a lot of prophecy that I received about what God was going to do for me, for my wife, for the ministry. And when this opportunity was presented, you got to go back and say, God, okay, is this you? Well, if God is going to, let's say, elevate us to a higher status or office, well, there's steps involved. There's paces involved. And so I think my wife will agree with this, we would not have been prepared to go to the next level just simply from where we were with Caring Church. We were missing a rung in the ladder.
Couple of rungs.
A couple of them, right? And so the Tony transition, next week on the Tony transition. I'm sorry. We're those rungs are being filled in. And so I believe when God relaunches us, how he chooses to do that. And that's the other thing. I think where before, because of frustrations, we weren't open to the Holy Spirit where we should have been. Like, so now we're like hearing from the Holy Spirit, and we're responding because, we're having an open mind and we're remembering what we seek God for. Well, this is how he's developing it.
Wonderful. What?
My turn now.
Yeah, it's your turn now.
Okay.
You get to ask questions now.
Right.
Your witness.
So, who do you think is better at keeping the pace? So I know we've been talking a lot about ministry, but sometimes we just have just regular things that just happen in our marriage. So who do you think is better about just like once you guys make a decision about something, who do you think is better about keeping it on track?
Mister. Mr. is better.
You called him Mister, like Mister from The Color Purple?
Just Mr. Just Mr. My Mr.
Mister from The Color Purple wasn't a good guy.
No, I said my Mr. My Mr. But he's the one who maintains keeping it on track. Because again, he'll mention it because it's like once his mind is made up or set to something, then it's like a go. It's like a go, so let's just say, even in marriage, I'm just saying we heard God and we're going to get a house. Okay, so granted, it might not be next week. It could be next week, but he's packing up boxes and we going to get a house. And so we ready to move. And so everything packed up, babe, we still don't have anything. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he's the one, if once he hears it, then he's moving on it. And he's trying to like keep me, where you at? What you thinking? I don't know. I'm, I don't have that fire is not behind me like it is behind him, so.
So is that an internal conflict, you think, or an external conflict? Because like you said, if God said, okay, we're going to have a house. Now, granted, like you said, it may not happen today or tomorrow. So how do you pull him back to say, okay, like you said, we don't have the house. I get, we're going to have it because that's every prophetic word. God is always speaking to us in our future. But how do you pull him back from, okay, now let's pack boxes and now you ready to turn in the keys and we don't have the next yet? How do you kind of pull him back and say, okay, we gotta try to be on the same page about this? I agree in what God is saying, but once again, there are steps because like you said, if you already, if you already put your foot on the gas and now we're at 90, when really we should probably be, because once again, you over the speed limit at that point. How do you come back to the speed limit of 65?
I stopped packing boxes. I never actually start packing boxes. So,
so he has no choice but to stop.
Right.
Yeah,
slow down.
Because I'm still living life like, okay, it's going to happen, but you know what? We're still in right now, and I'm still living, I guess, for the moment or day by day or whatever. So yeah, and so like I say, it's his drive. Like I say, I'll just stop, and if he'll eventually stop when he sees that I'm not moving toward that same goal, he'll eventually stop. So I think that's why we missing a box that had all that stuff in it, that toothpaste that I wanted. But no.
There's the bus. And my wife was driving.
It almost reminds me of, so like we have two cars, and so
we used to.
If we're both not driving at the same speed limit. So one of the reasons why I hate to follow Andre is because I just naturally drive slower than Andre does. So normally when I'm following him, he's like way ahead of me. Now what I'm hoping is that he's at least looking in his rearview mirror to make sure that I'm still there. But once again, it's like when that other person is ahead of you, like you said, I'm following you, but I'm just going at a different pace. But what I love is like, it's almost like what you were saying about I'm going to call it the Tony transition. The Tony transition was both of you guys were in the same car, because I think it really does make a difference when you're in the same car versus me trying to play catch up, because it's hard to do that. Like you said, when we're in the same car, we both got to be on the same page because one person is the driver and we're obviously going together. But when we're in two different vehicles, it's like, okay, well, like I said, I'm going to slow poke it, or you know what, I'm not going to run through lights, or I'm not going to do any of those things because I'm like, okay, I just want to take my time.
Yeah, I think though what you just described is communication, right?
Yeah.
And so that communication has to still be apostolic, but at the same time, it has to be, go back to what I said earlier, it has to be an understanding of how each other is wired and how we're gifted, right? Because I'm apostolic, I'm always going to see future. I'm always going to, I'm always going to have vision, and I'm always going to be like, today. But I have to learn how to curtail it because God is not always saying today. And I have to know that and understand that, no matter how prophetic it is, right? But also, this is where kind of like I like, again, the analogy you guys talked about car racing, right? Like there's sometimes when cars drift off of each other, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, hey, you go ahead and you drive and you be ahead, and I'll draft. I'm sorry, not drift. I meant drafting, and I'll just draft, and vice versa. But even in that, we're still on the same page because we communicated that this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, like, even when we got ready to move down here this last time, I think there was too much on both extremes, right? Like, my wife wasn't geeked enough, and I was too geeked. And because at first we did not communicate, like, hey, babe, no, there's some things in this house that's been in this house since we got here we have not used. And if we think we're going to use them, then we need to pack them because we're not going to use them anytime soon, or we need to get rid of them. So there's a sense by which that communication has to take place so that now we narrow that gap. Because I'm with you. Like, I've led my wife driving, and my wife's behind. Like, I naturally want to go, as fast like I drive, but I got to keep in mind I got precious cargo behind me, and I don't want it to happen to her. And so communication is the key. And so I think that's why we were successful, with the Tony transition, because there was plenty of communication about it. So.
Excellent. We were going to ask you about examples, but you've already given us 2 examples of, like, your move, and then obviously the Tony transition, which will go down in infamy. Now that you've given it a name, you got to call your pastor and give him credit for that. Make sure he watches this video.
I feel like that should be the motto.
the Tony transition.
The Tony transition. Because it's better than what it was, because we've seen you guys through so many different transitions that to now today hear you guys talk about this the Tony transition. This is actually one of your best transitions, that we've seen you guys make together, because like you said, we've seen you guys like not on the same page, and like you said, even through certain moves. So like I said, this is really good.
So we got a couple more questions for you. We know you got you on the hot seat, so you're doing very good. Nobody's sweating, nobody's yelled out, you can't handle the truth. So it's been good. We appreciate y'all sitting on the hot seat. So, when we look at, and we've studied sort of transitions, there are external factors in a transition. There's, environment, the situation we're in, the income, the job market, various things that may affect, our transition, the challenges, right? And then there's also internal factors, our fears. Murph, what you described is kind of like passive resistance, right? I'm not going to actively resist, but I'm going to resist by, just not moving. I'm going to plant in, I'm going to dig in.
Right.
So there are these internal factors that we carry with us that we use that create challenges to transition. Are you able to describe, and either of you feel free to speak up, internal or external factors that you've encountered during transition? And you're free to articulate what you did to deal with them.
Well, as you probably know, most of my internal factors were fear. I was afraid, the unknown. Here it is. We're like with the initial move, we're coming to a place where we know just one couple, and it's like, really, we, God, of course, but we have no one to depend on but each other. You know what I'm saying? And that was rough only because, like, the different things that we've encountered, before the transition. So because we had issues there, how can I, in a whole nother state, all by myself, just have to now rely on you, when I've been, let down, so that right there in itself, like I say, the fear, okay, if something's not right, where do I go? Who can I turn to? Who can I talk to? I can't leave the house and like, I'm never going home to him again. I have no place to go. So fear was a factor. Fear and uncertainty. Those were my factors.
How'd you overcome that though? Because here you are now in the Tony transition. And so that initial move was years ago. But once again, you guys, like you said, there was moments, like you said, you went to Memphis, then you came back, and I was like, listen, we're not throwing y'all no more going away parties. This is it.
Right.
We saying goodbye to y'all once.
Yeah, you get two baby showers.
Right.
That's it.
We ain't got too many more goodbyes in here. You know what I'm saying?
But once again, those transitions were tough because once again, it's like you said, we went, we came back, we went, and then you went by yourself, and then it was. But now here we are. It's like, how did you finally say, what did you have to work through to say, okay, you know what, I can't be afraid anymore. I really just have to trust God and go with this thing.
Yeah, I had to do the Nike thing, just do it.
Yeah.
Just had to do it because other than that, playing double dutch, digging in my potatoes,
Yeah.
I'm getting there eventually, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, just had to, just do it. And so would I call that a leap of faith? Eventually, yeah. Because that's what it was, because staying here, I mean, it has to get done. That's the bottom line. It has to get done. So whether you do it now or later and whatever, the longer it takes, you're just, pushing whatever's waiting for you further and further down the line. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I had to have conversations with myself. You know what I'm saying? I actually talked to myself and I actually answered myself. So if that makes me crazy, then oh well. But I had to have conversations with myself to like talk my own self off the ledge.
That's good. I like that.
Joe, what about you?
Yeah. For me,
he's never afraid.
He said, I ain't never scared. I ain't never scared. I ain't scared.
Yeah, that's actually not accurate. So, but the reason it's not accurate is because I don't know what it is. I don't know what the unknown is. I just know God has told me to do something. Mm-hmm. And, because he's told me to do something, and I know you guys know because you guys have been under an apostolic house as well. God doesn't always give you the details of what he told you to do, right? He doesn't give you all the details. He'll give you some, but he won't give you all of them. And so I have been like, okay, God, how is this going to happen? How is that going to happen? And so at some point, I think the way I started dealing with the internal and external things was I had to work on myself, but the devil was trying to get me to focus on my wife and say, he was whispering, she's not supportive. She's not doing this. She's not doing that. You asked her about this and she won't respond to that. And so, she's always telling the Allens that he don't ever talk to me, but she don't ever tell him that I have tried to talk and she don't have nothing to say, and so I had to stop going through those paces and say to myself, oh, wait a minute. If God told you to do A, B, and C, and you're saying you're trusting him, then part of trusting God is trusting God enough to speak to your wife.
Yeah.
And you communicate with her as well. Like, stop falling into that trap of, well, she should know this. Well, don't she hear from God too? And that's not my place to question whether she hears from God or not. It is my place, though, to make sure I'm praying that she hears from God and I'm making sure that I'm communicating. And so I think we got better when we stopped trying to deal with each other and try to make sure, hey, do you have all your T's crossed? Do you have all your I's dotted? And then we started saying, hey, do I have, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It had to become introspective. Like, what am I doing? What is it called? The pronouns? I don't know what it is, but we have to change the we to the I. Like, what am I doing? And so, yeah.
That's really powerful that you said that, because like I said, sometimes we concentrate so much on, like you said, us together, we're one. But then, like you said, there are moments where we have to come outside of that and like say, okay, what am I doing? We're still Team Allen, but what am I doing that's causing this transition to slow up, slow down, or just not be at the same pace. And sometimes those are very difficult conversations that we have to have with ourselves. because like you said, it is easier to blame your spouse, to be like, okay, well, if they had and if they did, and but like you said, what I love about God is because he's so loving, he's like, okay, when you go to take it to him, he's like, okay, well, I don't want to talk about your spouse. I want to talk about you, because
Right.
what he really is saying is, I need to get you back on
Mhm.
pace.
Mm.
I'm the pacer. We said that before,
Yeah.
like the Holy Spirit is the pacer,
Yeah.
and so when we really allow him to pace our emotions, to pace our thoughts, to really get into those places in our heart, then that's like you said, that's how we now get into the same car, and now we're on the same pace. We can move easily together.
Yeah. And we have to respect the pacer's pace, right?
Yeah.
Because when the pacer's on the field, nobody moves faster than the pacer.
Yeah.
All cars, everything moves at the pacer's pace until the pacer says, now it's time to race. You're on your own. I will get out the way. But on my cue, you're able to run the
Yeah.
race on your own. So I think there's a powerful lesson in that.
Yeah.
So we are now down to the last question of the day.
Oh my God, one more question?
One more question, right? And you each have to answer this individually. Okay.
Gosh, man.
So, if you had to go back and talk to your younger self, young Adrian, young Joe,
Yes.
I'm young now.
oh, I'm sorry, much younger, right?
I do like that.
Right. What advice would you give them about pacing and transition? You had to go back and you had to have lunch, coffee with your younger self and say, Adrian, you're going to encounter this. This is how you need to think. What would that be? So each of you take a little time to describe that.
I would let like Murphet know this road, man, is this journey, man. You're going to encounter a lot.
So did I smoke that crispy?
So what you need to do is make sure that, let's just make sure you're healed before you go into anything. Make sure you are healed. Make sure you're complete. And what I mean by that is, I don't know what I mean by that, but just
I had something really deep to say, but
right, I had something really deep and profound, but but anyway, but just make sure you're ready for what's ahead, because life is going to come at you. It's not going to come the way you expect it. So just be prepared to make transitions as necessary, because transitions are necessary, so it's not going to, everything's not going to fall in place as you foresee it. So just be ready for unexpectancy, for things to happen. I think that's what I would tell myself.
I like that you said that, because even when you talk about, like I said, coming from a healed space, it's that brokenness. Sometimes that's where we have to go to those pit stops. And so, like you said, and because that's where the internal conflict comes in. And that's what makes it so difficult to even want to make transitions, because I'm reacting to these transitions from a place of hurt, from a place of trauma, where I'm not completely healed. And so one of those stops on the road is, okay, let me figure out how do I get healed. It kind of goes back to what we were saying. Let me deal with myself, and like you said, that younger part of you, if I had dealt with myself earlier, then maybe some of these transitions we could have made a lot quicker. Thank God for his grace, and he waits for us to catch up, because what he has for us, he has for us. But I like what you said. Like you said, if I could get myself healed, then it might have been a little bit easier to make some of those transitional moves.
Yeah. We're going to let Reverend Murphy answer here in a second. But what I love about what you said, too, is that the conflicts, the issues, the things you encountered, maybe if you had not looked at them through the prism of your trauma, you might have processed them differently.
Yeah.
And you may have spared yourself some strife, some conflict, some difficult times. And for all of us, we really need to understand what that prism is, so that we can get healed from the trauma that's contained within it and view the world through both natural and spiritual eyes. So appreciate you for your transparency there. So
no problem.
Reverend, your turn, sir.
Yeah, all three of y'all said what I said. That's the answer to that. I'm serious. Before we got online, I said to my wife, it's the traumas that we deal with that, even before either one of us knew each other, it's the traumas that shaped our ability to reconcile, to resolve conflict. And so, basically, you have to get to a point where it's never too late when God is involved.
Yeah.
So, and so that's the grace of it. Because other than that, you'll keep blaming other people. Like I told my wife, she brought up the toothpaste. So I'm gonna speak out of my trauma. The toothpaste wouldn't have got lost if she would have helped me pack. So since you didn't help me pack, you don't get to worry about what happened to the toothpaste. Should have helped me pack it. So, and I understand, like, even using that analogy, while it's a little bit funny, my wife was dogmatic. She's like, I'm not helping. Mm-hmm. And I know that came out of her trauma. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I know that how I dealt with a lot of things, because you mentioned, how we've been through quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And again, to tap into one more time, that race car analogy, we thank God that you guys are part of our pit crew, because it is the pit crew.
You need a pit crew.
Yeah.
Huh?
You need a pit crew. That's real talk right there, sir.
Yeah. Because those are the people that's going to help maintenance your vehicle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They're going to help you with the wisdom to help you win the race. And so, for me.
Yeah, those are going to be the people to keep you from trashing the car.
Mm-hmm.
That too.
It's time for you to go to
bed. Right. Time for your meds.
Man, you've been smoking weed. No. He has not been getting high, ladies and gentlemen. That is not true. It is funny, but it's not true. And so, no, man, I just think, I tell myself, get healed, get some help.
Yeah.
Before, for the things that you are dealing with, before you take your broken self into a whole relationship. And it doesn't matter what kind of, whether you're going to be partners in business with somebody, whether you're going to be good friends, or whether you're going to be married. Get some help and make sure whatever's broken in your life, for whatever reasons, make sure that's healed. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to be dealing with your brokenness for a very long time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's profound. That is profound.
I know, that's helping me.
So we just want to thank you all for your transparency. Thank you for spending time with us on a Sunday evening, recording this. We'll be releasing this at some point next week. Mm-hmm. So, the time has just been wonderful. The testimony has been wonderful. You don't know how prophetic you've been, because our future episode is going to be about creating a trusted inner circle.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
How do we get a pit crew?
Right? In fact, we're going to change it from a trusted inner circle to a pit crew, just like you described. Mm-hmm. But we got that in the hopper, and we've been working on that. But we believe it's important because we don't always know how, and we have trauma and barriers that keep us from establishing it. Many of us have pride, right? We don't want to share our business with too many people, right? And it's right to be guarded about what you share, who you share your business with. But there should be someone where you can share accountabilities. You can, cry on a shoulder. You can express yourself. You should have a pit crew, and there should also be people in your life that you aspire to be like. Yeah. So we should always have folks in our lives like that. So that's going to be something that's coming up. Maybe we can get y'all to help participate in that. So.
Well, I'll just say this real quick.
Why don't you say that real quick?
Thank you, baby. I don't know what I would do without you. Thank you for being part of my pit crew.
No problem.
I'll say this, though. When you're building a pit crew, you need people who are specialists in their fields. Mm-hmm. And that's what race car pit crews are consist of. You know what I'm saying? And so you guys are our specialists when it comes to the wisdom of God's word, how you guys relate. And watch this. I've never met two people who seamlessly hold us accountable, even though we're the best of friends. But you guys are not ashamed to say, "Hey, man, your slip is hanging." I know that's old. I know I'm dating myself with that, but
Why are you wearing a slip, man?
well, this is one party I went to, and
Yeah.
drink man for 10 drinks.
You didn't change your pronouns on us, did you? Now that you wear it.
Yeah, no, but no. So yeah, man. Thank you guys for real though, man, because you guys have been such a blessing to us since the day we've known you guys, and you've been more than fair. You've not taken sides, and so you need people in your pit crew who are going to hold you accountable, and like you said, people to aspire to. And so, we thank God for the Allens, right?
We do. We thank God for the Allens. We do.
Thank God for the
Andre and
Memphis.
Lana Allen.
Andre and Lana Allen. Yes,
Right.
yes.
Well, thank you all again. We wish you all the best. And
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it. This was fun.
This was fun?
No,
All
it's
right.
fun.
Then that means you got to come on again.
Yes.
You got to come
Yeah,
on
for
again and
sure.
share with our audience. All right, you all. You all have a
All
great
right.
evening. All right.
All right.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, family. That is it for Safehouse for this week.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and
Hope you enjoyed it.
and we hope you learned something. That's a powerful couple. Everything that they've talked about, they've endured and come through. So
For
they're
over
speaking
30
from
years.
for over 30 years.
Yes.
They've been married twice, so
Twice.
they committed to this
Yeah,
thing, right?
they transitioned
They said I do,
out, then they
and
transitioned back in.
Right. They did the hokey pokey
They
with the
did.
marriage,
It was
right?
like,
They put their left
wow.
foot in, they took their left foot
I
out,
don't like
then they put their
you.
left foot in,
Yeah.
and hopefully
Okay,
they're
we're
still
back.
shaking it all about, right? So yeah, they're doing it. And
But the second showing has been amazing.
Yeah.
Listen, come on, Jesus.
yeah.
But to that point, though, like you said, God knew what the destination was. That even with them checking out, that was an illegal move.
Yeah.
And they had to really come back and correct that. And so, and like I said, and God has been with them, and He has been faithful.
Yep. All right, you all, that is it for this week. We want you to like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, give us feedback in the comments section below. Make sure you check out the past episodes.
Yes.
Make sure you hit that little bell so you can get notifications on when we
Ding, ding, ding,
produce
ding, ding. I'm
content.
sorry.
Uh-oh, you ding. Put your ding
I know,
away. All right.
I'm always making noises. I apologize.
All right.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, with that, we say peace.